Hey guys, welcome back. This is our first new segment with Kickstarter developers and creators, and hope you guys enjoy it. So again, this is Tabletop Gaming Network, and with me is Wes Otis, and he kind of has a really cool Kickstarter. It's actually one of the more unique ones that I've come up with that's related to gaming, and I'll go ahead and let him tell you a little bit about that, and then we'll get into some Q&A.
Hello, everybody. My name's Wes Otis. I own Plate Mail Games. We do sound backgrounds for role-playing games, tabletop games, LARPs. Basically, the goal is to make sound that doesn't interrupt the flow of a story, but enhances a story.
Okay, so it's just background music then that you can kind of make it more thematic?
Yes, it's not just background music. There's also sound effects. So there are some that are just strictly like a swamp sound or a busy street sound. But then for certain genres like horror, there's some music in the background. And then we also do music tracks that are just strictly big battle scores and things like that.
Oh, okay. So this would be like a soundtrack that a DM would control for like an RPG game or something that would
right.
At the appropriate cues would kind of cue up the right sound effect.
Right, and most of the stuff is 10-minute long background loops. So what the GM can do is set it up in iTunes or any of their whatever their favorite audio software is, and they just put it on loop. And so once they're in the bar, they hit Fantasy Bar, and then just let it go and run their game the way that they would normally do. And so they'll hear crowds and people opening doors and taking drinks and a bard playing a song off to the side.
Oh, awesome! So you guys had another Kickstarter that was very similar to this one, and that one was successful, right?
Right. We've actually had this is our third Kickstarter. We've had 2 successful Kickstarters so far. The first one was for just background loops, and that one did really well. We were able to fund, and then we ended up doing like I think $52,000 for the project, which was incredible. I honestly didn't think we would do as well as we did because it is a newer concept. It is something that people have to kind of get used to, the idea of, all right, I'm going to use sound in my games while we're playing. The second Kickstarter is also background loops, but there were single fire sound effects. So I'm doing monsters, we did traps, spells, weapons, and the weapons and the spells can be used by players with just even their phones. So if you have an MP3 player on your phone, you fumble, you hit the fumble sound, and you hear a sword skittering across,
nice.
Break or whatever. So it's kind of cool, And then when you cast spells, it's the same thing. Like if you polymorph somebody, I have polymorphed into chicken, so like you hear the sound of the spell goes off, and then you hear a chicken, running away.
That's kind of awesome. So a lot of Kickstarters are very visual with the way they present themselves. Was it tricky for you guys to figure out a way to do your pitch without having the ability to have visuals of gaming tokens and pieces and different things that people use for their various Kickstarters to kind of make their videos to kind of make it more visual?
Yeah, we when I started doing it, it was very important to make a video that had me in the video so people could see who I was, and then kind of highlight the sounds and have many different samples for people to take a listen to. So and explain what we were doing. I think a lot of people have they think of music or whatever, and they're it's a different concept. So yeah, it was a little difficult, but I think we pulled it off in the end.
Oh yeah, I mean you're on your third successful Kickstarter almost, and
Yeah.
you're well on your way. So is it all digital media files?
Yeah, we do MP3s and we also do FLAC. And the main thing is I'll now the first Kickstarter I delivering is one of the hiccups that I think all Kickstarters have to learn, whether you're sending something through the mail or you're sending a file over the internet. The first Kickstarter I had to manually put in each email into the
Ooh.
service I was using, and we had like over 1,000. So it literally took a few days to get everything done, and it was just me doing it with a friend of mine. And luckily he was quicker than I was, or it would have taken a lot longer. But with the new Kickstarter, I've set up kind of like a Dropbox situation where you get a audio locker, and every time you buy stuff from one of our Kickstarters, we just add it to your locker, and it's something
Oh,
that
that's
I'm going to
cool.
institute. Yeah, it works pretty well, and the guys from our first Kickstarter are actually going to get lockers themselves. I just have to set it up, and so it's a good place to kind of keep everything in one. If something goes wrong, you can re-download it, and you don't have to worry about losing your stuff.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So one of the things at my group we always a lot of us are into Kickstarter, and one of the problems that we've had, like you said, is basically the supply. And we have learned over the couple of years that we've been doing, backing Kickstarters and getting involved more, is the more successful a Kickstarter is, it's almost like the longer it takes to get things, just because of the amount of production that has to get involved with getting things done.
Right. I think for us, I I've been doing this a long time. I did post production for 15 years for Disney and Warner Brothers, and doing cartoons and things like that. So I am hyper anal about scheduling, and I my last Kickstarter was on time. This Kickstarter, I don't see any problems with. But I think that the thing that most people run into, I'm a backer as well. I back tons of stuff. Is they get excited and they see that the Kickstarter is doing really well, and the people who are running the Kickstarter are excited, and so they start promising more and more stretch goals. And whenever I do something, I always look at what the stretch goals are and say, well, that's going to take a little longer because they've added all this extra stuff. Because when they first make their projects, they say, this is going to take this long. This, like, let's say a core book is going to take this long. And when they hit the stretch goals, I think that sometimes they don't always factor in that the stretch goals are going to add time onto their schedule. I do think that if someone's a few months late, that's fine, but there is a certain point where you're like, well, I've waited 2 years for certain things where it's like, okay, this is a video game, I understand, but am I ever going to see this? We're on to Xbox One now,
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
so
I got the feeling.
it is definitely one of those things, and but I try very hard to communicate with my backers as much as possible, and let them know, okay, if a problem comes up, this is what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I've seen, and a lot of us are still waiting on an RPG that we backed a year and a half ago. Is
Right.
they promised minis, they promised the book, they promised to do the book in a higher quality and to make it a hardback, and so there was all these stretch goals that were promised, and nothing's been released yet. We haven't even gotten the PDFs that we were promised for the rule book.
And a lot of the times I think backers also have to look at the company and say, can they do this? In my case, we don't have a lot of moving parts. I do. My wife is classically trained and does a lot of the score work for the music, and so I know that she's capable of doing a lot of stuff. And I've been working on it for a while, and she and I do all the work. We sit down and we figure out what's going on. But when you start adding more pieces in, when it's like, well, you're going to get miniatures and more books and so on and so forth, you're adding time, and things happen, hiccups happen. Your shipping container from China with your miniatures doesn't leave when it's supposed to, or there's some other problem that happens in delivery, and so I think that's a big part of it. So I think that backers really need to look. Like, I'm still um, Call of Cthulhu 7th edition, I think, is a few months late now, and I'm not expecting it for a while because they did the same thing. It's like, oh, we're going to do color, and now we're going to do this, and you
Yeah.
know, we're going to make the heavy leather bound version, and so on and so forth. So, I think they were supposed to release in like November or something. I can't remember, but I would be surprised if we get that book by August of this year. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool doing the digital media because there's a wait, but it's not quite as long as waiting for something. Like I've actually just gotten a couple games in that I had been waiting for 6 months on, and
Right.
it was super exciting to get the package and open it. But I'd been waiting for it for a while, so I was kind of like, oh, okay, let's see what we got. But the digital media doesn't take anywhere as long, does it?
No, not at all. And a lot of times, like with our second Kickstarter, I'm releasing stuff as I go along. So, um, I think everybody got their add-on packs from, like, you can, with all my Kickstarters, you can get the tracks from the older Kickstarters, and you get those pretty quickly within the first month of the Kickstarter you're backing. And so you there's over 108 tracks from the first Kickstarter alone. So you've got lots of stuff to play with while you're waiting for the next shipment. And I'm trying to release every month or 2 months as I go along.
Okay, cool. And what is so most of it is completed, and you've kind of finalized and finishing it up before you send it out, or are you working it out as it gets funded?
I don't start working on anything until it gets funded because I need to make sure that we can cover the cost of what goes into it. But as soon as it's done, I start working on it, and that's another thing I think project creators need to do is make sure that they give themselves enough lead time. Um, uh, right now, you can go out, and I think I think we got everything done at the end of November for the first Kickstarter, and that was with sending out CD backups and so on and so forth. But everybody had their stuff by August, and so you just, like I said, have to tell people what you're doing, what your schedule is, and it usually takes me about a day, day and a half to get through one MP3 background loop. So something like Space Battle, if you listen to Space Battle, um, you'll hear all these guns and crashes and all this stuff. That's 80 tracks of sounds. So that
Oh
takes
wow.
like 3 days. Yeah, it's all. I don't do anything that's not. Everything that I do, I would easily submit to a video game company or Warner Brothers or whatever. That's the quality I'm looking for because I use these sounds as well as you guys. It's not like I just put it out there and I don't. I want this stuff to be awesome because I really enjoy playing games. So that's always the goal. And so depending on the background loop, it could take me a day, it could take me 3 days, and then once that's done at the end of the month, I can then upload it and get it out to people.
Yeah, so basically anything that anyone's waiting on from you is basically just the quality is going to be there for the wait.
Right. That's really what you're getting is you're getting, professional grade stuff, and plus you're getting someone who's been playing role-playing games and gaming for 30 years. And so when I do it, I know what I as a GM would want for my gamers. And as a player, I know, okay, I want this sound effect to sound like this. And so I think that really helps the overall process.
So, is there any plans for you to kind of market to the game shops, kind of the brick and mortar area, where people could, if they're not aware of the Kickstarter, or they're not, they weren't a part of it, or they didn't get in on time, that they could still pick up the audio that you're putting out?
Well, right now we're on rpgnow.com and the RPG drive-through. Brick and mortar, I'm not sure because that would require actually printing CDs, and I think that CD media for music is kind of dead at this point.
Yeah.
But we're expanding. We will be selling through more vendors online. We'd like to sell through uh, like play Pathfinder's site and a few other places that we've started to kind of expand to. We are also interested in either creating a soundboard ourselves that would allow GMs more control over what's going on, or even partnering with somebody who's a programmer to be able to create something. We've talked with a few people. The cost is pretty high to get that done because anytime you're talking about programming, it's pretty high. But hopefully one of these days we'll be able to work that all out.
Yeah, that actually sounds very cool. One of the questions I meant to ask you in the beginning that I totally forgot. What was the overall? Where did the idea come from? For you to kind of do this and put your time and your skill behind something like this.
Well, I'm going to totally date myself, but way back in the day, second edition D&D, Planescape.
This guy too.
Exactly. Planescape had this box set that had a CD in it, and it was this background music that you're supposed to play during the adventure that came with the packet. And I remember our friends and I sitting down and we would play that. And all of a sudden, in the middle of okay, you're in the bar and everything, you have people around you, you're talking, and then suddenly this big music swell would come in and just break everything up. It was like you were fighting a titan. And so we were like, at that point, I was like, this is terrible. And so much of the stuff that was out there was this music that had these really high crescendos and plummeting parts and everything else that didn't fit what the GM was trying to do. So I decided to make the background loops and make the music steady, one stream of flow, and then that way the GM can really set the pace. The GM gets to say, this is what's going on, and he can change the tempo of his story without having to worry about the music or the backgrounds interfering in what's going on. So that's really where it came. I mean, literally, 15 years ago when I first heard that CD, I was like, this is not good. And now that technology is to the point where I can make an MP3 and put them up online, it's a lot easier now than back then before we had the infrastructure for it.
Yeah. I just had a thought. What might be kind of cool for you to do if you did want to do a brick and mortar kind of thing is the digital download cards where you just get the card with the key code, and then you download that way. That's like your proof of purchase.
That's actually a really good idea and something I'd probably take a look into because we're always looking for a way. I think our biggest hurdle right now is just getting people to hear about us and to know that we exist. I'd say probably a good maybe 5,000 people know about us at most. And I think that if people give us a chance and go out and get one or two tracks and try them out in their game, especially, I mean, fantasy games, horror games, we do sci-fi, we do steampunk, we do everything. And that was a big goal because I play everything. I do all genres, all time periods. And so, and like I said, even LARPs, I've had friends use the high society ballroom LARP, which has,
Yeah.
people playing classical music in the background. And they've said that it really adds an extra layer of depth to their story. So,
Yeah, that's actually kind of cool because my gaming group, I mean, we play Anima Tactics, which is kind of an anime-based miniature skirmish game. We play Dorado, which is kind of a fantasy game that takes place in hell. We
right,
play In Her Majesty's Name, which is a very steampunk-oriented game. Uh, we play Saga, which is a kind of historical, semi-historical game that takes place with the Vikings and the Welsh and that kind of thing. So, I mean, our tabletop miniatures game is all over the place, and we're playing Blood Bowl right now
right.
for our league. But we play Fortune and Glory. We play Last Night on Earth. We play we play any type of board game too, and we are all over the place. I mean, it sounds like you are right up the alley for what we do. I mean, we go to events, we go to conventions, and we try and put on the best show that we can just to introduce people to gaming that typically would not be into gaming.
Right. Well, and like I said, I think a lot of times people kind of dismiss sound because it's not a miniature, it's not something that can hold on to. But if you were to watch any action movie or any other kind of film without sound or play a video game with no sound, you lose 50% of your enjoyment because you don't realize just how much it's adding. And we've got we've got Hell's Howls, which is this you know, hellscape, and we have a lot of Call of Cthulhu stuff. And one second, nose is a little itchy. Anyway, we have a lot of Call of Cthulhu stuff where like Dreamlands, and people will play Arkham Horror, the board game, and they'll play Dreamlands in the background, or they'll play, whatever, and they'll forget that it's only 10 minutes long because at 10 minutes you forget about the first 5 minutes by listening to the second, and so it's this kind of continuous, and it really is a lot of fun. And like we have a saloon where a drunk guy's playing the piano and people are talking. You hear like chips being thrown and people playing poker for like an Old West game. And we also have, spaceship battles and so on and so forth. So, or, the old derelict mining ship in the middle of space where you have like these big metal sounds and then this ominous music in the background, and it sets a tone and it really adds a lot to your game. And so I hope people will give it a try and will listen to it and will enjoy it as much as I do. I really enjoy making the tracks, and it's a lot of fun to think about what's going into stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. So after this Kickstarter, what are your plans? Because it looks like this one's going to fund.
Yeah, definitely. I think this one's going to fund. We're going to finish up with all the tracks that we're working on. I actually have some ideas for some games that are going to be audio board games that I've been thinking about. Can't go into too much detail about them. Uh, Also, I would like to. I have a core game myself after playing for 30 years. I do some writing, and I want to expand. And also hire other artists and writers and so on and so forth, because that's the goal, is to, as a small independent publisher, is to be able to get people and kind of expand on their ideas, because audio's great, and we'd love to do it, but I'd also like to do writing, and I love miniatures. So, I don't want to just do one thing. I want us to really be an all-inclusive kind of company.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, and miniatures are what we do primarily. I mean, we do board games and party games, and I'm I do a lot of stuff right now for Boss Monster from Brotherwise Games and for
Right.
Lonely Labs, which is card games. But we kind of, we hear about a miniatures game because a lot of our guys like to paint. They like the hobby aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get something going, let us know, and we will be all over that.
Yeah, I mean, I've backed both the bones. I've got so many miniatures to paint at this point that I don't even know when I'm going to get them all done. But yeah, miniatures, board games, I really like it all. The other thing I think I'd like the company to do is also become more involved with charities and things like that. We did a bundle of holding last year for the Red Cross and the autistic, an autistic. I'm completely blanking on the name, and I shouldn't. Um, it's Autistic Self Advocacy Network, and that's another big goal of ours is to continually kind of try to give back to the community that's been helping us have the success that we've had. So those are other goals that we have in the future.
That's cool. Any plans to attend any conventions, any gaming oriented stuff, and kind of present this to people in public, kind of?
Yeah, absolutely. We do try to do a event at the LAX Con in they have 3 year. It's Strategicon.
Strategicon, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you've gone to that before.
That's kind of my home base these days.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to get out to do like GaryCon. I would. That's the old nostalgic gamer of me. Would love to go to GaryCon, and I'd like to do Gen Con at some point. The issue is, a lot of the places have these big halls, so you
Yeah.
go in, and you've got
So much noise that you just,
so much noise
yeah,
that it's if you're trying to do sound, it doesn't
it's
work.
hard.
But if we could, at Strategicon, we've actually been able to set up a room. One second. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
We
I
could,
just got over that myself.
it's allergies. After the rain, all of the flowers decided, hey, it's time for pollen, and it's like, oh man. But the Strategicon has been gracious enough to give us a room to be able to showcase what this is, and we've had a lot of success with it. Um, and I'd love to start doing a lot more cons and going out and talking with people because, like I said, I'm in the hobby as much as anybody else, and I really enjoy playing and meeting new people. So.
Well, one of the things our club does is we started out just doing gaming conventions when we were all involved with a particular gaming company, and then we realized that the game was more attractive to non-gamers, so we started going to non-gaming events. So we go to Anime Expo, we go to Anime LA, we go to
Right.
we go to steampunk conventions and play strictly steampunk oriented games. We go to WonderCon, and we do game demos, and we do mini tournaments. We do one-day achievement leagues, and we take we try and stick to one or two games an event, but we always take a bag of just randomness with us that we can, if we want to bust out Zombicide, we just throw that out on the table, and that's one of
Right.
those, that's a crossover game for people. It's a board game with miniatures, but people start to kind of see, because we have I think 2 or 3 sets in the club that are painted up, so
Right.
people are like, oh, it's a miniatures game. It's not that bad.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea too. I think that I have a friend that actually runs a steampunk convention at the Queen Mary every year.
Oh, it's HMR Steam.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And she set that up a few years ago, and we've talked about doing sound effects at her venue, and because we have like I did a steampunk Zeppelin sound background
Yeah.
and some other things that I'm also going to be doing a time like a H.G. Wells time machine background for kind of a steampunk era thing. So
Yeah,
that's a
we
great
did.
idea.
Yeah, we did that convention the year before. We missed this year because a couple of us had kids, and we had a couple other things happen. We
Yeah.
couldn't get anybody to commit to that convention, so we all
Yeah.
missed it this year. And usually, there's quite a few of us that are big into the Steam.
Yep.
Um, so we kind of skipped out on it this year, but we are going to be at Gaslight Gathering, and their gaming room's actually relatively small, and it's really intimate. That might be a good venue for you to
Right.
try and get into.
Well, I'd be totally open to running games for people, and if you're, especially if you're local, if you go to Games Empire or EK or whatever, doing a full day of gaming is something. I used at Strategicon. I used to run 5 different gaming events from 5 different systems. So I would play GURPS, Call of Cthulhu, you know, D&D, and then maybe 2 more GURPS games, but they were always all different. So I'd show up to the con, and by the end of the con, I'd be all raspy and I
Yeah,
couldn't
tell me
talk.
about it.
But yeah, I'd be totally open for more gaming experiences like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our gaming club is literally from San Diego all the way up to Bakersfield. So we have members everywhere, and we constantly try and rotate what stores we're going to every month because we mostly go to stick between Montclair and Orange County just because those are kind of the midway points for everybody.
Right.
But we try to get up to North LA every once in a while, and we try to get up down to San Diego every once in a while. So,
Yeah, definitely let me know, and I'd be totally willing to make the
yeah.
trip and show you guys what it's all about.
Yeah, that'd be definitely cool. So it looks like we're going on the 25-minute mark.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and call it. So if you have any last thoughts, anything you wanna share with everybody before we go?
I would say just if you've never had sound in your game before, check out the Kickstarter. It is a great way to get relatively inexpensive sounds for your games. And once we fund, we start doing a ton of stretch goals, like most, and that ends up to just a good value and a great way to add something to your game that is going to enhance your story, which is the goal.
Okay, cool. So again, guys, I'll link the Kickstarter down at the bottom, and I'll also link the charity if you want to go ahead and send me a link for that.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll go ahead and get that linked up, and I will share that with everyone. And then remember, guys, it's Pro Tabletop Gaming Audio. The Hunt for the Missing Tracks is the name
Yep.
of the Kickstarter. So go ahead, check them out, give them some support, and help the community, guys. It's a local thing, and we need to continue to support our local creators and designers.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate you giving me 20 minutes of your day, Wes. So
No problem.
happy gaming, guys, and may the dice always roll in your favor.